When you look at this picture of John Perini, it's almost hard to tell he's there in the bed.
I got very sick.
It's a stark contrast to the family Christmas picture he'd taken earlier that same month, December 2008.
To this day, he hasn't bounced back to himself.
John's illness came on slowly at first.
Through the first 4 or 5 weeks, he was lost 22 pounds. He could not talk. I had to lift his lip up in order to get a straw in his mouth to get water. He would not eat. He was near death.
And the pain was excruciating. I couldn't move my head. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move my body.
John was eventually diagnosed with sepsis, a dangerous bacterial infection usually seen in hospitals. But John hadn't been in the hospital.
I thought to myself, what else could it be? Could it be this oxygen that he has been on?
John was on oxygen for sleep apnea. So you're breathing this air in all night, every night?
Every night.
The Perinis say they called Western Home Care, who supplied John's oxygen machine, to send a technician out.
He says, I don't believe this. And he took it out and it was all black.
This filter is what they're talking about.
And he said, oh my God, when was the last time this was checked?
Turns out that machine had never been checked since it was first delivered more than 5 months earlier.
Make sure everything's bagged and covered. And those
Keith Hare owns Western Home Care.
My goal from day one has been to see patients within a 60 to 90-day period. But again, with that being said, the manufacturer only recommends that it be checked yearly, one time. And so we're not paid to go out for in between 60 and 90 days.
Medicare pays them $200 each month for John Perini. And as for that once-a-year service he says the manufacturer recommends, machine manufacturer Invacare tells me there is no specified service schedule. It's left up to providers like Western Home Care to evaluate the environment a machine is in and decide for themselves when to check or change a filter. You take a look at that thing, and it was black.
Well, again,
that is scary. That means there's something wrong, right?
Unfortunately, you didn't get to see it. I didn't get to see it.
You want to see
Al, I'd love to see the filter that came out of there, absolutely.
Here you go. Take a look at the filter that came out of that machine.
Right, so again,
is that normal?
I see a filter that has done its job properly.
The Perinis became increasingly concerned, so after going through 2 more oxygen machines from Western, they decided to take a filter and machine to a lab for testing.
We test for mold samples all the time on drywall, tile, things like that. I've never seen an oxygen filter before.
Silver State Labs found traces of rust, smut, slime mold, and the filter tested positive for a very dangerous bacteria called Pseudomonas.
If I knew there was Pseudomonas present, I would not want to inhale it.
The contaminated filter came out of this side panel inside the oxygen concentrator. And when you look at it under a black light, all those fluorescent particles you see are residue of the bacteria.
In fact, of all of the bacteria, it's one of the more dangerous ones.
Dominic Ricciardi is John's doctor.
It can cause something called sepsis, where the bacteria actually disseminates through the entire body and can be life-threatening.
It's often referred to as flesh-eating bacteria.
And so we usually see a lot of Pseudomonas issues within hospital settings, people who are on ventilators and such.
Is there any doubt in your mind that that oxygen concentrator was the source of your sickness?
No doubt. No doubt at all.
They're so sure they filed this lawsuit against Western Home Care and Invacare. Barry Levinson is their lawyer.
I'm hoping that this changes the way they do things.
Those who oversee them are ripe for change, too. Medical companies like Western are regulated by the Nevada State Board of Pharmacy and by Medicare. The state admits it can only check on companies once a year, and that doesn't involve inspecting the machines. The Department of Health and Human Services investigated this whole issue back in 1994 and found most patients weren't receiving frequent enough service. But to date, there's still very little protection out there, just a vague Medicare requirement that companies minimize the chance of infections and investigate any infections that do develop to see if they're related to the equipment.
It's let sit for a little while and cleaned.
Heath Hare doesn't believe Western's machine made John sick.
Is there a chance for something to get onto anything? Absolutely. But there are millions of people out there on oxygen, and this is, as far as I can tell, the very first time a patient has tried to claim that a filter, because it was doing its job, caused her husband to have this illness.
That's a bitter pill for the Perinis to swallow.
This is supposed to be something that would help a person, not try to kill him. And I damn well almost died.
John's doctor believes he should still be on nighttime oxygen, but he's too traumatized by what he went through, so he's avoiding it, opting instead for a simple inhaler in the hopes that it'll help him breathe better. His family has filed formal complaints asking for investigations by the Nevada State Board of Pharmacy and Medicare. Darcy Spears, Channel 13, Action News.